and welcome to this week's episode of Coffee and Careers. I'm extremely excited to be joined by two really great faculty members, and I'll let them introduce themselves in just a moment. But my name is Erica O'Toole, Assistant Director in the Career Development Center, and I am just really excited to be here today. I haven't done one in a couple of weeks, so I'm happy to be back with all of you. So if you're joining us today, please feel free to ask questions throughout. We're happy to answer, and I will make sure that our faculty do get those answers, and so that we can get you some information on this really great major. We're going to talk about human resources today. So as with every Coffee and Careers, we always talk about what's in our coffee. So I have my Done Run mug because, as many of you know that tune in regularly, I'm a very big Rae Dunn fan, and so I have my Rae Dunn mug collection. But I am drinking coffee with my pumpkin spice creamer because, after all, it's fall. So I'll go ahead and turn it over to Dr. Kevin Love.
Well, greetings, everyone. My name is Kevin Love, and I am an industrial psychologist and a professor of organizational behavior and human resource management in the Department of Management. I have been at CMU for 42 years. I worked in HR actually for a little longer than that, about 45 or 46 years. And so my background basically is been in the public sector, dealing with selection and performance appraisal and training and development. I have specialized over the decades in working with law enforcement, looking at their selection procedures and using assessment centers to promote people into high-level managerial roles. I kind of cut my teeth in the city of Tampa HR, hiring in the first 3 female firefighters in the history of the department, as well as working on improving the ranks of female police officers, and I continue that career. So what I try to do at CMU is blend my ongoing consulting and research work in HR with what I am teaching in the classroom.
That is awesome. I think we have a lot of students who would probably love to sit down and talk to you a little bit more about that. So hopefully that is part of what comes out of today. I'm going to go ahead and hand it over now to Dr. Amy McGinnis.
Good morning, everyone. So what's in my coffee is a little bit of coffee this morning with some pumpkin spice syrup and a little bit of hazelnut creamer in a mug from my favorite student organization, the Society for Human Resource Management, the student chapter on campus. So I'm Amy, and I teach in the HR program. It's great to be with you this morning. I've been at the university for a little bit more than 23 years. It's hard to imagine. I'm coming up on my 24th anniversary at the university. I started out in HR, doing employment and compensation, recruitment, hiring, working with hiring managers to post vacancies and go through the selection process, get new folks on campus in terms of employees on the staff side of things. And I did that role for a couple of years. And then after that, I transitioned over into training and development function. It was a new office on campus, specializing in workshops and programs, activities centered around helping employees on campus to do their jobs better. So we offered anything from business writing to strategic planning to performance evaluation training to leadership development, all kinds of workshops, programs, coaching, etc. And I was in that role in a series of roles really for about 10 years. So coordinator, assistant director, associate director, director. Ultimately, I was the director of strategy and organizational development. And then the person here to my left made me an offer that I couldn't refuse a little over 10 years ago. And that was to come over to the faculty side of things. I had been working on my doctorate in higher education leadership with a management consulting cognate or minor. And he knew that I was near the end of my program and offered me a position to come over to the management department. I teach a whole variety of courses, including women in business, women in management, HR, managerial communications, introduction to management, and all of those kinds of either entry-level or mid-level courses. So I'm happy to be here this morning and to talk about my favorite subject, which is human resources.
Awesome. And I was just talking to both of you a little bit ago, but I think one of the really awesome things that comes out of these Facebook Lives is getting to know the faculty more. I mean, just hearing both of your bios, I feel like so many students will definitely want to come and get to know some of your experience better. I mean, anyone who's listening, look at the amazing experience we have just in our faculty alone. I mean, that is really incredible. You can learn so much about the industry and get some real world experience. So thank you both so much for joining me. So I have a couple of questions planned. Like I said, if anyone who is joining us live has any questions they would like to ask, please do ask in the chat and I will pass those on to both Amy and Kevin. But I'll start us off with, what can I do with a degree in human resources?
Well, I usually address it a similar way for all the students that ask that question. And it's a fabulous question because the whole point of getting involved in HR is to go in with your eyes wide open about what can I do with this. I look at it this way. The beautiful thing about getting a major in HR is that you can go directly into a human resource management position, that specific career. And companies now recruit specifically for people with HR backgrounds, majors, as well as internships in the area and so on. But at the same time, you're eligible or very qualified to get any management role in a company. And so it's very broad-based. And then if you even want to take a half step back, as a business student, many of our students are BSBA degree students, you have the background to really morph into any sort of other role. And in reality, many of our HR majors may start in HR, but then they take promotional opportunities that move them into a variety of roles in the company. Sometimes it could be logistics, it could even be marketing, and they're very well suited for that as well.
Amy, do you have anything to add to that?
So I think most of our students, when they're finished, move into HR roles, and they may ultimately serve as more of a generalist, where they're using a variety of HR functions. Sometimes, depending on their experience and the kind of interest that they have in a specific area of HR, they might move into more of a specialist role, where they have expertise in a certain part of the HR sort of employee life cycle. So maybe they are specialists in terms of recruiting, or they might be a specialist in terms of compensation, total rewards, those kinds of things. So students, I think, are well prepared to operate in more of a generalist capacity. And then with some professional experience, they may move into some specific specialty area.
Absolutely. And I think what I'm hearing from this is there's a lot of versatility, which I think is very appealing to our students, that they could go into this and have the ability to really define their career based on this major, right? They have the ability to be very versatile in what they're kind of choosing in their career path based off of HR. So I think that's a very appealing major, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
So if one of you or both of you could describe the kind of things HR practitioners can do.
I'll let Amy go with this one because, one of the great things about getting Amy in, and it took a while for me to convince her to come into the department as a faculty member, is she came in and she has, like many of the faculty in the department, great HR experience. So it's not just teaching something. She's already had years being out there and walking the walk, so to speak. So I'll just let her kind of handle that role.
Absolutely. Thanks, Kevin. So for anybody listening out there, if you've ever applied for a job, there is an HR professional involved in that process. So the employee life cycle sort of begins with recruitment. Even, before that is HR professionals do forecasting to think about the future. So what happens when folks retire from organizations or leave organizations? How do we plan and prepare for the recruiting process that it's going to take to get new employees on board? HR is involved in the selection process. So once we have a pool of candidates, how do we select the right person? What kinds of activities are aligned with the specific jobs that we're hiring for? So we select people, we bring them into the organization, we help onboard them. We get them in terms of an orientation to understand their job and the institution that they work for, the organization. We figure out how to pay them appropriately. We figure out what kind of benefits a new employee might want or have. There's all kinds of pieces associated with HR, including, contract negotiation, sometimes getting involved in employee relations issues. Sometimes wellness initiatives come out of the HR department. Sometimes, the entire employee life cycle, from leadership development to promotion, whether it's lateral or vertical promotions, HR is involved in all of these different processes and functions.
The only thing I would add to what Amy has said, as Amy alluded to earlier, you can get a specific HR job. For example, in a larger corporation, you might be a recruiter, or you might be a labor relations specialist. Or in medium or small companies, you might be an HR generalist, which means that you're going to do everything that Amy just talked about. And so one of the things that I believe our students find extremely interesting and challenging is that if they're a generalist, you never know what's going to be on your plate on any given day, because you handle every HR function there is. So boredom is never an option.
So depending on the organization that one works for, sometimes the HR department can be, 40, 50 people, each with specific specialty areas. Other times you are an HR department of one, and you're doing all of those functions that we just talked about.
Wow. Yeah, so definitely a lot of versatility within the roles as well. It sounds like it could be from a very small team to a very large team, and you could be doing something from, very one specific job to a whole plethora of things within HR. So what a lot of students I know that come to my office are always asking, like, I don't want to do the same thing every day. Sounds like within HR, you're getting that experience to be able to do different things every day. And what I always tell students too, and you, maybe both of you could add to this, a lot of students sometimes are conflicted, do I want to go into HR, but I also might maybe like, healthcare administration or something like that. But what I always tell students is, you can always go into HR and use it within healthcare, within retail, or within the business side of things. There's so many different ways that you can use HR, because every company has an HR department, right? So I think that's what also makes HR so unique.
Well, Erica, you could also argue that every manager, no matter what the functional area they're in, needs to have an understanding of HR, because they are directly managing, supervising individuals, which means they need to know the HR policies. They're usually in on the hiring function. They're doing performance evaluations. And so the HR, knowledge and skill you're gaining is going to be with you for your entire career, no matter what functional area you're working in within that particular industry.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and you're exactly right, Erica. I think any industry is going to have an HR professional or an HR department. So whether it's education, my entire career was in higher ed HR, or healthcare HR, or manufacturing, right? So HR on the shop floor, so to speak, corporate environment, a Fortune 500 company, a whole variety of industries. Every industry will have an HR department or person involved.
Absolutely. Okay, so speaking of that versatility, what minors can I pair with an HR major?
Well, I can throw a few things out very quickly. I usually tell students to think about how they would like to supplement their HR with relevant knowledge and skill that doesn't duplicate what you get in the HR major. So we find, for example, a lot of students will pick up a psychology minor. And in that psychology minor, I advise them to, say, take a basic course on social psychology or group dynamics, teams, that sort of thing, stress management, even in some cases, clinical interviewing and counseling, because HR people do a lot of interviewing and so on. So that's one. Information systems is another one. As we move into an era of HRIS systems, we're going to be interfacing so much with larger and larger data sets and comprehensive software programs to handle all of the HR functions. Beyond that, it's really of what you want from your minor. Do you want to work in a specific industry? And if that's the case, then you might say, if you want to go into banking, well, then you might want to look at, say, a minor in finance or something that would give you some specific credentials there. So minors are kind of like frosting on the cake, but it's something that I always say, don't duplicate what you already have.
Absolutely.
The other minor that I would offer that pairs nicely with human resources is a leadership studies minor. So right. That's an interdisciplinary minor, but it gives students some real practical hands-on experience with leadership development. So to pair, in addition to legal studies or psychology or information systems, those are all good choices.
Right.
That's great. Okay, so I know I have, specifically in my office, a lot of students asking about certifications within HR. So could you talk a little bit about that professional certification that's available?
Absolutely. So I mentioned earlier, we have a student organization on campus called SHRM, which is the Society for Human Resource Management. SHRM is actually a national organization with more than 300,000 members across the country. And they're sort of the gold standard of membership-driven organizations in the HR realm. So our CMU HR curriculum has been vetted by SHRM, and they consider our undergraduate HR degree program to be academically aligned with what they see as important competencies and knowledge for information or for HR professionals to work in that realm, right? So because our curriculum is aligned, students can sit for professional certification at the end of their senior year typically, so their last year of study in the HR program. They have to have 500 hours of work experience, which is approximately one full-time summer internship, right? So if they have a full-time summer internship with experience in HR, they can sit for this professional certification. And then not only when they graduate from CMU do they have the BSBA, Grounded in Business degree in human resources, but they also leave with a professional certification. So they might be Amy McGinnis SHRM CP with those credentials and those initials. So we think that's a really important part of the process for students. It's not required in any way, but students who generally choose to sit for the exam do significantly better than the statistics in terms of national pass rates. We're really proud of that.
That's great. So when you're speaking with a student, that's definitely something that you would suggest that they do to set them apart?
Absolutely. We think it's well worth their time and investment. It's not an easy exam by any stretch, so it does take some discipline and sacrifice, dedication, and studying to move forward and to be successful in it, but we think it's well worth it.
And as Amy points out, it's one of the features that makes our HR program very unique within the state of Michigan.
Great. Okay. So what would you say is trending in the industry right now?
I really think that it doesn't take much to figure out what's going on right now in HR, because all we have to do is turn on the news and you see that there's an incredible employment and staffing problem, but there's no shortage of workers. That's an HR dilemma. And so what we're seeing basically is a redefinition of quote unquote work. People are no longer tied to offices. Major corporations, Fortune 500 companies, are selling off their downtown office spaces, getting rid of that expense, telling professionals and other employees you can work from anywhere in the country, if not the world. HR people are going to be the ones that are going to lead that revolution. They are going to be the ones redefining work. And of course, along with that, a redefinition of all the policies and procedures that go along with handling workers who may not be physically close by, that may interface only electronically with the company. And that, I think, is going to make for tremendous growth in the ranks of highly trained HR professionals, like an HR major. and also be there for a number of years now and value the input of these HR people.
Absolutely. So when students are looking for internships, I know that in our office, we very much so value internships. We find that internships are kind of the gateway to getting positions because we know that experience not only solidifies for the student that, yes, this is what I want to do. Maybe this is the company I want to work for, and then they apply to that company. But also it is giving them that experience to put on their resume so employers see them as a more marketable candidate. So for both of you, could you give me some perspective for our students on how to get an internship?
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say work closely with the HR faculty. So we oftentimes are in the know about opportunities for internship experiences, and we like to share that as much as we can with our HR students. But it's great for students to get that practical experience, not just one practical experience through an internship, but perhaps multiple. So we mentioned early on in our session this morning about, experience in HR and education, HR and healthcare, HR and manufacturing. We've had students at CMU who have had internships 3 and 4 times over, right? Wow. So one student in particular that I can recall did an internship in manufacturing, enjoyed it, also had an internship experience in a Fortune 500 company close to Mount Pleasant, enjoyed that experience, and then had another opportunity to do an internship with a nonprofit. So this student had 3 opportunities to really figure out what kind of industry do I want to work in the future, and really focus my HR professional experience. So for students to have that opportunity to really explore and not only just work in HR, but work in different industries to really focus their career search can be really beneficial. So we're able to help. Your office, Erica, is able to help with internships and the application process. But students, I think, can really get some valuable experience.
Absolutely. And we're definitely here to help as far as helping students search for positions as well, help them with their resumes and cover letters. So I'm glad that you brought that up as well, Amy. Kevin, did you have something to add to internships?
The only thing I would add to that is, as Amy points out, it's please, please, please don't be a stranger to your HR faculty. Being egotistical, I do believe we've had the best HR undergraduate program in the state for decades. So we have graduates all over the country. They want to employ CMU HR interns. They want to hire CMU HR majors. And they contact us. We keep in contact with our alums. And so please, please, please reach out electronically, email, if the office hours, face-to-face, before class, after class, whatever it takes, so that we know that you're in the hunt for an internship. And we've got your resume. So when something comes along, we can pass your information along. In addition to what you do with career services, all these things. But the other thing I would point out is if students are thinking of a traditional summer internship, please don't wait until March or April. Companies are locking in summer interns in October and November. They want to know that that position is filled so that they have the resources available to it. So be proactive, get to know your faculty, work with your career coaches and the career center to basically see what's out there, and you will get great HR experience.
Absolutely. I'm so glad you mentioned that look early on, because that is so true. If you're waiting until the last minute to get those internships, you're going to have a very hard time finding them. They really do start searching October, November for their interns, and they're filling them up quickly. So you definitely want to take advantage of faculty for sure. I mean, just listen, like I said, just talking to you both before and listening to your bios. I mean, why would you not want to speak to your faculty? They have amazing experience. So, I mean, talk to faculty, use your connections, and get in there early so you can try to get some of these really great experiences. Okay. Well, I really appreciate both of you coming on. And I always ask at the end of each of the segments, do either of you have any last minute words of advice for our students?
I would say, even though we have gone through a very interesting time in terms of perhaps doing more online work than what we were used to or whatever, as I just mentioned, please know your faculty, work with your faculty, introduce yourself. We are there. The reason that we stayed in this job is because we want to mentor and work with students like you, and it's something that brings us great satisfaction. So don't be a stranger. There's so many ways to reach out to your faculty members.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I would echo that. We love hearing from students and connecting and helping to make those connections for and with our students, whether it's with another faculty member or with an internship experience, or even, moving to the top of the pile on the hiring list, right? By making a recommendation or offering some words of wisdom. So we are happy to connect with you as students. We'd love to have you in the HR program. We certainly have your best interests at heart, and we're fired up, so we hope you are too.
Awesome. Thank you both so much for joining me, taking some time out of your Friday to talk about this really great program. I hope we have students reaching out to you, because I know I want to hear more about the program just after listening to this for 25 minutes. I mean, it sounds like a really, really great opportunity for our students. So thank you both so much for joining me. Thank you for everyone who is tuning in as well. If you have questions after we go live and you still want to ask either Kevin or Amy, please feel free to put those in the comments on Facebook, and we will get back to you with responses as well. So I hope everyone has a really great weekend and a really great Friday. And thank you for joining us for another episode of Coffee and Careers.
Thank you much.
Thanks, Erica. It was our pleasure.
Thank you.